Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight interview series. I'm your host, Barrett MacDonald, and today I'm joined by Adam Langley, President and owner of Langley Developments. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to kick things off a little bit about who you are and what it is your company does?
Hey, Phil, thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, Langley Developments Incorporated is our parent company. We're a waterfront development and marketing agency that works across Atlantic Canada, particularly in the marine tourism sector. And we work with communities and private sector clients to really support the development of a marine destination network across our region by connecting like-minded services and people to a bigger product of Atlantic Canada as a global yachting destination. And in that, there are a lot of properties around our coastline that are in need of rehabilitation and repair. And so we act as that coordinating effort to bring together multiple stakeholders to really realize potential of these assets.
Well, that's a fun place to be in our Atlantic Coast region because, like you touched on, there's a lot of coast out here, which is
Well,
fun.
Nova Scotia, I think 13,300 kilometers of coastline. And if you start to bring in all of Atlantic Canada, that obviously that coastline just continues to extend. And kind of the missing piece that we've seen is that connection between communities and destinations and folks working together towards a common cause and increasing the economic impact to our region and developing the waterfronts and inviting new opportunities, particularly in the marine tourism sector. We do work a lot with the high value visitor market. Some people, refer to it as the super yacht sector, these larger yachts. So we have a part of our company, I guess I'll call it a department, is Super Yacht East Coast. Some folks might be familiar with that name. That is our high value visitor attraction agency, marketing firm. And in that, we just launched actually a month ago our own podcast, Yachting Canada, which is focused on interviewing the people and places that make up the diverse landscape and peoplescape of our region and make it a destination for recreation and service.
Absolutely fantastic. So, what would you say you've come across as common misconceptions about running a business, and what do you do to combat those?
Well, I think the first thing is when you're doing something different, everybody looks at you differently. So for us, trying to develop that elevator pitch when we're involved in so many different sectors and bringing in, we are that kind of that coordinating effort. So I think when you're being asked to describe quickly what you do, I tend to have to pause for a second and be like, holy smokes, what are we actually doing today? We're involved in so many different things. So I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, uh, having being recognized that doing something different is okay, and if it doesn't fit in a box, it's probably even better. But getting the support behind those types of initiatives can be challenging if it's not a traditional trajectory, and if you're looking for financing or banking or other kind of supports, you can often struggle because you don't fit in a box.
Right, absolutely. So, when you think about all the different departments and sectors you have within your company, what are some of your time management skills that you use, and how do you keep a personal life going at the same time?
Very difficult. It's a struggle. My partner in the company is my wife Amanda. We're both very passionate about what we're doing. She leads our marketing side. So she came on board 2 years ago. I started the company 3 years ago. My greatest skill, I think, and it goes back to my background in working for over a decade in developing the Halifax waterfront and Lunenburg waterfront when I worked for the province of Nova Scotia through Develop Nova Scotia, is delegate. Oh man, if you can't delegate, you're gonna die. So you need to find people smarter than you, faster than you, to be part of your team. And if it's their immediate team, hire them. If it's partnering or bringing on other people based on projects, then bring them on board sooner than later. And that has been the key to our success. Is just finding again building teams around our projects so that we don't trip over ourselves and can't get up.
So, when you think to finding members of your team, what are some of the qualities that you look for when you're bringing them on board, and how do you foster that positive work environment?
Well, I think everyone, well, again, first thing, I just mentioned it earlier, is people smarter than me. I always look for those people. But you got to really be into what we're doing. If you're not in it, then you don't belong with us. And you got to put in a lot of effort, and realize that working with us is an investment in a bigger picture. And so that's not for everybody. Like some people, you got to punch in and punch out. Well, we kind of, we're 7 days a week. We're always going, we're always thinking, we're always working. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way that I mean, even my kids are into it. I think we're lucky that, part of what we're doing is the actual lifestyle we're living. We're reinventing communities, helping them recognize the potential from the water in, and creating connections that we've already strongly have ourselves. So I think that helps offset the fact that we might work too much.
Absolutely. What have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you began in business?
Oh, wow. Well, again, you have to recognize that some of the most important things that you do each day are in the weeds and aren't that interesting. And I think that comes back to delegating again. I know my dad told me when I started my first company, 20 years ago, he's like, make sure you get a good accountant. And I was like, yeah, I could do that myself. Well, no, I couldn't. So when I started my second company, the first person I hired was an accountant who runs all that stuff, so I don't have to think about it. So I think knowing your strengths and make them stronger, and if your weaknesses, if you're able to bring in supports to drive those as part of your success, and that's my recommendation is sometimes you just really have to realize what you're not good at and figure out who can do it.
Absolutely. So what do you kind of attribute your growth to over the last 3 years?
A lot of it is, again, it's getting out there and telling a story, and in it immediately having people see themselves in that story and wanting to be part of it. So that's a weird roundabout way of saying, we're creating, oh, it sounds silly, but we're almost creating this movement where people are recognizing the value of underappreciated assets, in this case, waterfront infrastructure, and often underperforming properties. And they're seeing them not only for the immediate value they might bring to themselves or to their community, but as they become part of a larger network across Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. This plays into our work around marine tourism development and attracting visitors by sea for recreation and service. I think it's really important. The service side, the professional supply chain in Nova Scotia is tremendous. We work with shipyards in Nova Scotia, including East River Shipyard and Lunenburg Shipyard, which are emerging as some marine service centers. The supply chain inland, recognizing how to bring those together from both the service perspective, but also the experiential side. So we will to work with vendors that want to really elevate their product and service, and just really, putting Nova Scotia on the map as a global destination for recreation service.
That's a fun challenge that you've kind of taken on there. So think back over the last couple of years, if you had to start all over again in business from square one, what would you do differently the next time around?
I probably would have left my previous job with a plan.
Okay.
No, I say that in jest. I did have a plan, but I wasn't sure how I could execute it. You know what? I do a lot of listening to other business leaders, and speaking of plans, and this is something much, some people will disagree with me and others might celebrate me. I never had a business plan for my business. And I've seen that because every time I turn around, it's like, well, do you have a business plan? Well, I don't have time to write a business plan because I'm in the business. I got to be there, out there making things happen. And I see that as a hindrance to a lot of entrepreneurs when they're asked to spin around and explain something for the 100th time, or try to take from their mind and put on paper so it fits into a box. So, and this, obviously business plans are important for many different reasons, but if it's something that you're stumbling on and that in your head you can make it happen, go make it happen and the plan will catch up. That's been my experience.
Fantastic. So I guess the last question I have is for anyone that's kind of watching at home, what's a solid piece of it? Sorry. What's a solid piece of advice for someone you have watching at home about getting started in business?
Well, I mean, there's so many cliches, so I don't want to use those, but just be honest with yourself and with others. Just don't hold back on what it is that you want to do, and make sure that you're always realistic, but in a way that there's a lot of people are going to tell you that won't work, you can't do that, and they're sort of just shaking your head at you. Just keep going. but find people who believe in you more than just saying that's great and support you, like actually want to come with you on that journey. That's been tremendous. We have a couple mentors who are incredible, who just love what we do, talk to them every day. They're just huge fans, but they're also involved in our projects. So they're not just sort of
Right.
on clapping, they're actually in
Yeah.
it to win it with us. And so I think that's, you can't do this by yourself. I guess that's a roundabout way of how I was trying to say that. An entrepreneur of one is probably an entrepreneur that's going to be done. Because you'll burn out. So you need to build that support.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, Adam, thank you so much for your time today. And to everyone watching at home, I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.